number. Welcome everybody to meeting number 53. How about that? We have approval of minutes from October 19th. Any corrections? Changes? No. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Mr. Ike, second by Mr. Berman. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right. Chris Grant has to leave us roughly around 6:30. I don't expect the meeting to be real long tonight, so let's give a shot at some project updates. First with TSKP. We have there you guys are. Deanna and Richard, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Our report will be brief as well. Deanna, as you can see, is sitting next to me. She's sitting very close to the monitor that we have in our conference room because she forgot her glasses and she can't see them. And it's a huge monitor, so I don't get it. I just need to report on a couple of things. One is that we have made the wetlands and planning and zoning submission. We're scheduled to also appear before the design review board tomorrow. That's November the 3rd. We also had a beautification committee meeting that was on October the 26th. I was not at that meeting, but my partner Tyson Kim was, and Joy Ortiz, one of the designers on our team who's working on a library, attended as well. We also had representatives from Richter and Segan, Jeff Baricchio and Cynthia Jensen were at that meeting. And so based upon the notes they shared with me, there were a few comments that will be addressed. So, for example, they had comments about the birch grove that we have in our landscaping plan. Richter and Segan said that they would consider a different kind of species. And there were also comments about some memorial plants. And so tree plantings that were memorial plantings, there may be a dogwood, I believe, at Prosser, according to Richter and Segan. The removal of those plants and salvaging those plants should be coordinated with Public Works Department. There's going to be so much construction activity on the site that it will be difficult to save them, so they should be relocated per the beautification committee's suggestion. I know the beautification committee was disappointed that irrigation is not part of the plans for site improvements. However, they requested that an outdoor spigot be provided. That will be done. They also made a comment about the drop-off along Tungus Avenue. Their thinking is that maybe that drop-off needs to be removed in order to improve the conditions of the existing oak tree that will be saved. But quite frankly, that drop-off has been there for such a long time, and it is useful for short-term parking or even delivery of, being made to the front door. So I don't think we want to remove the drop-off. However, there will be a slight adjustment to it. So that's pretty much an outline of the comments. We are expecting a formal notice or a memo from the beautification committee directly from Dan Carter, which we have not received yet. But once we do receive it, I'm sure it will be shared with the committee and we will provide a formal response. Regarding the design review board meeting tomorrow, there were a number of comments that were made the last time we met with the design review board, and that was back in March 3rd, earlier this year. That was during the schematic design phase. We will be addressing all of the comments that were made at that time. We'll be sharing the updated plans, the design development plans, which we've shared with the committee. And so we expect to address the comments they made in March, and we expect we'll get some new comments from the design review board tomorrow. We did have a discussion with Downs Construction regarding their initial cost estimate, which we have been reviewing. We expect that we're going to be continuing that review with Downs this Friday, during which our consultants will be attending and going through that. I'm going to wait for Downs to do their report, but it's we do need a period of reconciliation with all of the sub-consultants that are on the team. Anything else you want to add, Deanna?
No, that's all.
Okay,
That's good.
that's all for me. Any questions?
Well, I wanted to thank you for attending the beautification committee, and I know you're working on responding and acting on their comments, so we appreciate that. And also the DD, the design development documents, drawings, and specifications have been available to all of us now, you know, for a while. And I did take the opportunity myself to go through them, not in great detail because they're massive. I mean, it's a huge set of documents. So I just wanted to say in general that I was impressed with how far along the work is. There's a lot of great documentation there. I know Lois had some questions when she went through, which I'm sure we can address tonight if we can do that. But those are the comments I had for you guys. Questions for our design team, Patrick?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick question about the beautification committee, and maybe you don't know this answer, but you talked about relocating some of the trees maybe around the current library. Do you know where the relocation is planned for? Did they say?
No, I don't know the answer to that. That is hopefully going to be coordinated with Public Works Department in Bloomfield, Bloomfield's Public Works Department. They've been participating in these discussions, and I do think they have a plan for the relocation of those plantings, but I don't know where, honestly.
Okay. And then just as far as the design review committee, what is the main purpose of that meeting? I mean, what is their role in this project?
So according to the town's regulations, the design review board is advisory to the planning and zoning process. So the plans are referred to the design review board, they receive comments, and their comments have, and I believe their jurisdiction is the downtown business area pertaining to the appearance of the buildings, the landscaping, the plantings, in trying to make the building compatible with the goals of the design downtown standards. So I think I'm paraphrasing Mark as best I can on the role of the design review board. It's advisory to planning and zoning. And they have, I think, a direct responsibility for the Prosser Library. The McMahon Library is not within the downtown area. However, if the town council or the Planning and Zoning Commission asks them to review it, they will review it at that as well. So our goal with the design review board is to primarily address the Prosser site and building. I think secondarily McMahon, if there are any concerns on the part of the town council or planning and zone.
Okay. Okay.
Very well stated, Richard. The downtown area, technically speaking, is the Bloomfield Center District, as per our zoning regulations.
Okay, I have some questions about the design documents, but I think I'll wait, Mr. Chair, if that's okay, till we hear from Downs and then ask them that. Is that
okay?
Yeah.
All right, we can do that. Elizabeth?
Thank you.
My questions are related to Patrick's as well. So is the McMahon Wittenberry Library on the agenda for tomorrow night? And if so, did planning and zoning or the town council ask for that?
That's a good,
It is not on the agenda. It has not been asked for.
actually, Mark, I need to correct that. We did see the agenda for the meeting and McMahon is on the agenda. So we're a little surprised that it's on the agenda because when we met with them in March, there were no comments about McMahon. So we will be prepared to talk about McMahon should the design review board want to talk about it.
I can tell you that the design review board is relatively new and is still in formation, if you will, of its rules and regulations, even though it is simply advisory. I know that the long-term goal of the design review board is to expand outside of the Bloomfield Center District. And perhaps the Blue Hills area would be the next target. So, you know, it may have been out of curiosity. You know, I can't say, but strictly speaking, you know, it would be of their own doing to, you know, to review that plan, and it would totally be up to Planning and Zoning Commission how they take that, because it's not in the purview of the design review board yet. So that's where that stands. Is that sufficiently vague for everybody? Okay. Just watching the time here. Let's go to Downs and
Lois has her
oh,
hand
I'm
up.
sorry. Lois, go ahead.
I sent my comments on the design development documents to everybody. And I'm assuming that the appropriate people have seen them. So I think to go through them one by one is probably going to be a waste of time. I was concerned that the cafe still seemed not to be what we had talked about at the beginning. And I'm very interested to know what kind of insulation there'll be in the walls and the windows. So those are two things, but otherwise I hope you'll just look at the comments. And I say that I don't understand that much about construction, so some of them you may find inappropriate.
I'd like to respond, Laura. I did receive your comments, both Deanna and I have read them thoroughly. We will respond. I thought your comments were very good, very well thought out. And I think you know more about construction than you're letting us believe. I think you are right on target. I mean, you asked questions about the roof load, photovoltaics. You asked questions about insulation, as you mentioned. So we will respond to all of your comments and respond to the committee.
Okay, then let's go on to our construction manager, Downs Construction. We've got Scott and Tom and Kyle. Did I get everybody?
Yeah, you did, Mark. Good evening, everyone. I actually don't have too much of an agenda tonight, just because we are still reconciling the budget with the design team. We've had a few meetings this week already. And as Richard mentioned earlier, we'll be meeting again on Friday to look to complete that reconciliation. So we'll be ready to really get in depth on it for next meeting next Wednesday. And Lois, we have been reviewing your email as well, and they are very good questions. And, you know, you'll definitely be getting a response on it.
All right, so you were in process with the
Yep.
DD estimate. All right. Let's go, questions for Downs?
Mr. Chair, it's Patrick. So I did just have a quick question. So I started going through them, you know, to Lois's point about reading through and coming up with some questions, and Mark, to what you said earlier about, you know, how voluminous they are, which they are. It's a huge document. So, and a lot of it is very technical. I'm a project manager for my former life, so I, you know, get all of that part. But I guess what I'm wondering is, what is the deadline for, providing questions and or comments, back to you? And then second to that, what happens if, we can't, there's however many pages there are, if I can't get through that and we come up with something later on after you're done with the budget review, does that mean it's a change order, or what is the process to follow once these documents are finalized and we come up with?
That's a really good question, Patrick. And I don't think the owner will ever stop asking questions because there's a lot to take in.
Right.
As far as a deadline, I mean, we're looking to complete our DD budget with a reconciliation prior to next Wednesday's meeting. So, I mean, if you have questions, I mean, go ahead and send them. Absolutely. And I'm sure during the CD document phase, construction document phase before, for balance in November into December, there'll be more questions. And, as we get through these budgets and we start explaining what's going on, and the architect, TSKP starts going through the design itself, you're going to realize more things are going to come to fruition. For instance, like Lois had pointed out, there's an insulation spec that's missing, and she's correct. But when we look at the details as a CM and as an architect, we know we have a masonry veneered wall, and we know what that setup looks like, and we know what to expect to cost out with rigid insulation, insulating your building. And we can look at wall details and see where there's maybe bat insulation, and it does show those wall types, and that's how we're able to generate numbers. We don't necessarily need the spec unless it's something special, and the architect knows that, and they will definitely point that out or provide it to us if it is something special. So I understand that the questions from you, it can be difficult, but you're trying to understand, and feel free to send them because we do understand. And if we don't, Richard and I are going to have a talk so that we understand what their intent is, but we have a pretty good idea of what they're doing and where they're going. And we're just trying to reconcile with them to get everything to work as we did in SD.
If you allow me to follow up on
Sure,
Scott's
Richard.
comments. He is right. One of the benefits of working with a construction manager is when we give him a set of design development drawings and specifications, and they are voluminous, I admit, but there's still some elements that are missing. So like, for example, the specifications for insulation. But we show insulation in our details of the walls, for example. So someone like a Downs Construction knows how to interpret those wall sections that show insulation as to what the rating should be. And yes, and if you look at their cost estimates, you'll see that they did include in their breakdown insulation in the walls. But the design development is a work in progress. We still have to deliver the construction documents, the CDs, in January. So regarding your question about deadline for comments, I think the design development documents are certainly enough to describe the building and its major components. There's still going to be refinements as we get into construction documents. I would welcome your comments for the next month or even 2 months, as we try to finish the construction documents in January. Regarding your comment about change orders, no, none of your comments that we incorporate into the documents now, right until January, that's not a change order. That's part of the design process. It doesn't become a change order unless the project is let out to bid and you have subcontractors under contract. Making a change at that point would be a change order to those subcontractors. Hopefully that helps clarify.
Yes, very, very much so. So we do have more opportunities to provide feedback and comments, so at least through the construction design documents.
Right,
Yes.
while it's still on paper.
Yeah,
We
okay,
can-
that's good.
We can
That's
make all the
good.
changes, we want to make basically while it's still on paper, without a change order. So the process, we're looking, next week, I'm hearing we're gonna have the design development cost estimate presented. And then we'll give ourselves a week to absorb that. And the idea would be in 2 weeks from now to allow the architect to move on to the final phase of design construction documents. So that's what we're shooting for here, which they would wrap up in January. So we have all that time to still be on paper. Elizabeth, you got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I had 3 questions. One, I know we continue to talk about deadlines and soft deadlines, and I know I keep asking about this, but the timelines, if they could be updated to include that type of information so that we're all on the same page about deliverables. I also wanted to say thank you to Lois for sharing the items that she noted. And I did have a question specific to that about the stove at Prosser. Is there a stove at Prosser?
Yes, and I believe it's costed out already in the design developments. The question that still, I think, remains is the type of hood. I mean, we've gotten some feedback from the fire marshal, I believe, and the building department, and it's a commercial hood. It's a significant piece of equipment. And that's also costed out. I believe it's in the,
It was an alternative. It was.
but it may have been identified as an alternate, and maybe Scott can shed some light on that. But I believe right now the documents show a stove. It's a residential type of stove, and a more of a commercial kind of hood.
Yeah. You got to be careful once you start getting into commercial, larger gas stoves, that the hood requirements become a bit substantial. And the health department really takes a look at it and says, well, you know, there's a duct system that's going to go to this. This is going to be a large stainless steel unit, and you're going to have Ansel systems and nozzles coming down to put out fires, which go under controls, which integrate with systems, with the fire alarm and the BMS system, the HVAC system, and everything, you know, starts to get really complicated. So, you know, we've costed it as an alternate at the moment. And that's one of the things we're looking to reconcile with this Friday when we meet with the design team. So we could talk about that a little more intelligently with you to see, you know, how we really want to, you know, how the town really wants to go with it. You know, I know at Human Services, they have a restaurant, not restaurant, I'm sorry. They have restaurant equipment, but it's like the kitchen. But then in their teaching area, they have normal stoves with smaller hoods that don't require such technical, you know, health department required items. So it's something to think about as, you know, we come to this design with the estimate next week and we really get into it.
Thank you.
You're
And then I had another question about the McMahon-Wittenberry facade. I know Yugon had given a soft deadline for making that decision. Was that decision made, and which way did that go?
Are you talking about brick versus wood?
Yes.
Essentially, that question. Yeah, we did. We went with the wood.
I believe that was voted on by the building committee 2 meetings ago.
That sounds about
There was a
right.
recommendation.
Yeah, I know that's what's being priced, you know, in this estimate. And Elizabeth, with regards to the schedule, I know all the information is out there. I'd be glad to spend time with you outside this meeting and, you know, walk through that with you, because it's there. You know, it's all available. The schedules are out there. They've been out there. So to answer your questions, so I'm glad to do that.
It's all on the website, I believe.
Yeah. So we can walk through that with your specific questions on schedule.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm just hoping we can use more layman's terms. So, I mean, I've read the schedule and I have a lot of questions. So I'm sure as we are getting more questions from our public, it would be great if that was a document we could readily share.
Well, I think we need to discuss that. We have a working obligation here. So in one sense, I would prefer to educate you so you can read it. And then we can talk about what we share with the public separately. You know, it's not really, not everything we do is readily readable by the public. And I think that's okay. You know, these professionals need to get on with what they're doing. But we can certainly create graphics or other information, you know, with our outreach that makes sense for the public without a lot of the details. So we can do both. We can do both. Lois.
I'm sorry to go back to the stove again, but I didn't see it in the documents. I saw only a microwave. So maybe it's a microwave and a stove, but I didn't find it in the documents.
Okay, I can spend time with you outside the meeting, you know, and we can look at that together.
I just need to know it's there.
Yeah.
We're figuring it
Okay.
beyond the normal stoves.
All right. Other questions for Downs? All right. If there's no objections, I'd like to work out of order here a little bit, just so we can vote on a couple of things. We have a purchase and some invoices while Chris is still with us, and do that. Everybody okay if we move on to approval of purchase? See nodding heads. That's good. Okay. Nancy?
Yes, we just have one. We're revisiting the amendment to TSKP contract for the technology consultant in the amount of $34,500. And I've asked them to explain this regarding any questions that were had I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago at our last meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Moved by Bob Ike. Do we have a second? Then we can discuss.
second,
Second by Mr. Berman. Okay. So discussion on this service. I know Lois, you had a question on, there's an additional fee proposed for additional meeting time during the schematic design and estimate phase. The architect did resubmit the proposal without that. That is gone from this this proposal that we're going to vote on. I don't know. if
Okay,
there
and
were
I thank you, Mark, for explaining to me how we got to the 34,500, I think it was. So
Yeah, there are a lot of pieces and parts to it. You know, it's done by phases. There's 2 buildings. Some of the work was already incorporated into the architect's contract, so that's been taken back to adjust the fees. And the consultant has been working with us already, even though we're only potentially approving this tonight. So we appreciate that as well. And today was the first time I had a chance to meet him, you know, on a Zoom, and I'm very pleased with, you know, the organization and the direction that he's putting to this, not only in terms of the scope of these things, but how we're going to procure all this, you know, whether it's part of the construction contracts or whether it's FF&E or whether the town takes care of it afterwards by some fashion, you know. So he's sorting through all that, which is a huge help in the effort. Other questions on it before we vote? All right, all in favor of accepting this proposal and services, raise your hands. Okay, got I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and anybody opposed? Nobody's opposed. Okay, so we have 5, 4, and the motion passes. All right, thank you very much for that. Invoices, Nancy?
Yes, the first one is for TSKP invoice number 220103-7. It's for 100% completion of design development documents for $26,625.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Ike, seconded by Mr. Berman. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. All right, we're unanimous. Thank you. Nancy?
One more, it's also for TSKP. This is for 100% completion of design development services at Prosser, and it is $82,375.
So moved.
second,
Moved by Mr. Ike, seconded by Mr. Berman. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. And once again, we are unanimous.
Thank you. That's
Hi,
all I
Marcia.
have.
Glad you're here. Okay, so appreciate moving on to that. We have a report from our owner's rep Chip as well. I think we have something to decide on there, Chris, if you can hang in with us for just this item. So I'll turn it over to Chip.
I'm going to share my screen. Can you see the PDF document?
We can.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So asked to provide a milestone schedule for the swing space in order to move in by February 1st. The keys to that are that the process originally needs to go to town council, who then refers it to the planning and zoning. They'll review it and recommend to town council for approval. So that's a key component in this process. In order to do that, the next planning and zoning meeting is November 17th. It's a week early because of Thanksgiving. And if we don't make that meeting, then we're going to be pushed out, until next year. So I am recommending approval for tonight. In order to submit the lease to the landlord, as we talk about Wittenbury Mall, we did get a recommendation from the town attorney that we can enter into a lease with them. It's not a conflict of interest. The attorney has reviewed the lease and provided comments. So we want to get that into the landlord's hands so that we can have negotiation in order to submit that to the town council on the 14th. They will then refer it to the planning and zoning for the 17th meeting. Assume that goes well, then it go back to town council for approval on the 28th of November. Sign the lease following that week, and then can start procuring some materials we need in order to move in. We need to get a sink and some other things that is going to need some modifications on that space. With the lease term then beginning on the 1st of January, start that minor construction work, get the IT network infrastructure in place, move and set up the end of the month, and ready to go on February 1st. I have taken a look at additional options, but we did not find anything that was reasonable compared to the Wittenbury Mall space as far as availability, as far as lease length or space available. So at this point, I think we are recommending, based on the previous discussions about the acceptability of the Wittenbury Mall space, that we approve that to proceed forward in order to get a submission to town council on the 14th of November.
All right, can I get a motion to move forward?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to move that we recommend to the town council that they refer the lease for swing space for Woodbury Mall to the TPZ for an 8-24 hearing, and authorize the town manager into a lease after receiving final approval by the town attorney and town council.
Second,
Seconded by Mr. Ike. Questions, discussion?
Chip, can you unshare your screen?
Yep.
I don't see any hands. All right. All in favor? I'm sorry, now we have hands. It just popped up. Patrick?
I try to make this quick. So just from my own understanding, I think we're all aware that we've had, issues with the Wintonberry Mall, but again, we all know that we have a timeline. We've got limited spaces to look at, and this one is the best option. So I guess what I'm looking for is, and Chip, thank you so much. That one pager was great. I mean, laying that out and just showing those major milestone dates was very, very helpful. So I want to really thank you for that. I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
So I guess what I'm going to ask is, when we do go to the council, are we going to show the spaces we looked at and the pros and cons? What spaces we looked at and why we didn't choose them? I think it's important for the council to be aware of that, and for, the residents of Bloomfield to understand why we did go with the Wintonberry Mall, knowing that we've had other issues with Wintonberry. So I just think we need something that will say, we looked at, A space, B space, C space, and here are the problems with them, and the cost was prohibitive, and therefore, it was eliminated. So, something to that effect. And also just one for clarification, we are talking about that end. If you're looking at Wintonberry from where the Bank of America is, we are talking about that corner space, right?
No.
It's cornered to that little alleyway.
Oh, okay. So it's not the corner that used to be a retail space, or that's been vacant for, maybe 20 years. I don't know.
It's next, Patrick, it's next to State Farm.
Okay, so I had
To the
that
left- It's to the
completely.
left of that corner.
So I guess we don't have like a layout of that, do we, that you could show, Chip, or?
Of the whole building showing where the space is, no.
Well, or yeah, either that or just the space, because I all along, I've been thinking that we were going to that corner. The space we were looking at was that corner formerly known as whatever retail it was that went out of business many years ago.
Give me a
But I guess
second.
I've been confused on that. So, okay, well, I don't want to drag this on, but
Well, it's easy enough. Just give me 1 second and I'll share.
okay. And then that's really all I needed for now. The main thing was just being able to provide, a list of other spaces that were looked at and eliminated and why.
I think that makes sense, Patrick, when we go to town council.
For definitely. for town council.
Yeah, to give them the background.
Yeah, I think that's really it, Mark. And also to, for the outreach that we're asking Elizabeth to do, so that the public understands, why we chose what we chose.
It's
Oh.
this space right here.
Oh, okay. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So it's got this double door and this single door into it.
Oh, okay.
And there's a little right here is a display cabinet.
Okay, but that is the front side of the building, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and I thought it was way down there to the right at the
Over
corner.
here?
So, yeah, I thought it was way down there. Okay.
Not right here.
This is very helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Chip, for that.
And what is the square footage of that? Just so as a,
I think it was 3,400.
3,200. 3,200, Chip.
3,200.
32? Oh. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you. That's all I had, Mr. Chair, for now.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. Lois.
So originally, we talked about having swing space on the east side of town too. Is this now one space that's going to work for the whole town?
Well, my understanding is that there is still a search in process for something on the east side. We now know that the community center was looked at for swing space, but unfortunately, they will work cooperatively with the library for certain hours and certain programs, but not for the swing space for the whole time of construction. So there have been things looked at. I don't think, nothing is in play at the moment that I know of that has been acceptable, but it's still an ongoing search. I mean, I suppose that could happen at any time. You know, it's not up under a deadline per se. It obviously will impact availability to the public on that side of town, but it could happen at any time.
Thank
That's
you.
as much as I know about that. Elizabeth.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that the only space that was being talked about at the Human Services Building was the computer lab. I think the term swing space was not the right way to approach that. It was really to enhance and supplement their services to the public. It was never anything beyond that. So I look forward to this document from Chip. I do think it will help us explain the predicament we are in. 3,200 square feet is very small, even if we had 2 spaces. So, you know, we're kind of not in a good position. And I just want to be able to explain that to our public. And the document I was thinking about was the site location document that TSKP worked up when we went through that whole process. It was very clean, pros and cons listed. An easy thing to show people our working process. And I think that would go a long way, especially if the public is not happy with the final outcome.
Well, I hope everybody realizes this is temporary, so please keep that in mind. Scott, you have your hand up.
No, that was a accident. Sorry
Okay,
about that.
an errant hand. Okay, so so we have a motion on the floor, correct? Yes, we do. Any further comments, questions? All right. Anybody need it reread? We're good? Okay. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Okay, I've got 5. Anybody opposed? All right, then we're good. Motion passes. All right, thank you, Chip.
Sure.
Thank you, Bob. I know Bob put a lot of effort into getting us to this point.
Do have one more item.
Hopefully the, yeah, you still have the floor. Hopefully the lease negotiations go smoothly and quickly.
I did receive 3 proposals for the commissioning agent today. So I am still going through those to compare scopes and you know, across each other, as well as the scope that we asked for. So hopefully we'll have a recommendation on that for the next meeting. So did receive the 3 proposals.
All right, thank you. And again, our goal is to get them on board before we start our construction document phase.
Right.
To get our lead points for that. All right. So let's, any questions for Chip? Chris.
You're muted.
Just a quick question on the lease. So I've been looking over the floor plan and I can see where we need some more network drops and some more electrical, honestly. Is that all just going to be standard in the lease that we can make those changes? Or should we iron out exactly what we need to do with those?
It's best if we have a sense of that. We will have some flexibility to propose any design changes, and they will need to get approved. But you know, that kind of thing shouldn't be an issue.
All right. Do you want me to just reach out to you with a on the drawing where I think what I'm thinking about? Because it's those offices. Surprisingly, the offices have no networking.
Okay.
And the one corner has no power.
Right. Yeah, I did notice that corner had no power.
And we could use both. So, okay, I just wanted to check. I'll send something to you what I was thinking about.
All right, thank you.
Great, thanks, Chris. Anything else for Chip? Okay, So let's go, committee reports, outreach, anything, Elizabeth?
Nothing formal, but still a lot of informal stuff happening with library staff about how to best get word out about all of the upcoming changes.
Our hope is that we get through this design development estimate and move on to CDs all as well, and that will be a perfect time, you know, to let out information. So it should be coming up pretty quickly, I hope. Chance to do that. Good opportunity. And Leah is with us for technology.
No report at this time.
All right, thanks, Leah. I think we're, you know, now that we have D'Agostino kind of guiding us, I think we're in good shape. We'll see how again, it all ties back to the estimate and where things are gonna stand for that.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we've done our approval of purchases and invoices. So we will have a special meeting next week on the 9th. And that will be a big meeting to go through the design development estimate, followed by our regular meetings on the 16th and the 30th. So as always, please let us know if you cannot make it. Appreciate that very much. Let's see, comments from the committee. I just want to remind everybody again, our design team will be at the design review board tomorrow night to present. It's a hybrid meeting. It's actually going to be taking place, I believe, in council chambers. And then that's at 6 o'clock. And then Nancy, did we set a date to go to CEEC? Do we know when they're next?
Yes, December 8th.
December 8th. Okay. All right. Those are my comments. Other committee comments? Ava.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick question. Earlier when we talked about the facade of McMahon, it was mentioned that that had been voted on. Was that part of something else? Because I don't see it in the minutes.
I believe it was
Luan asked for an October 19th decision, but I don't actually see that decision listed.
I think it was before the meeting, our last meeting, that we did that. Not at the last meeting, but before that. So if you're looking at October 19th, it wouldn't be in there. But we can take a look and revisit, see when we made that.
Good, thank you.
Again, we're gonna, you know, all of this is subject to when we see numbers, so. Other comments from the committee, questions? Mr. Berman. You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to sound like a broken record. I usually do. I know that. But again, I have no clue what the estimates are going to look like. But again, don't think that we have all this extra money because I suspect we're going to find out we don't. So, you know, I'm not sure where anything's going to come out. Mark and I have a bet as to which way we're going to be going, whether we're going to be over or under, and how much. When we see the numbers next week, we'll know which of us is has been more accurate. I've gone through the design development documents, both sets, and all three addendums to each set in detail, and there's a lot of stuff there, and it's pretty detailed. So it's a good idea for everybody to have gone through them, look at them, make sure you understand what you're looking at. As Lois said, there's a lot of stuff there, and she came up with some very good questions. Stuff I came up with really depends on costing. So I have to wait, I'm gonna wait until I know what the estimates come in at. Then I can start asking my questions. Thank you.
All right. Elizabeth?
Yes, I just wanted to share my frustration about the money conversations for a variety of reasons. The number one reason being that when we applied for CIF, I felt like a broken record asking over and over and over again what areas we should be looking at in terms of, coming up with that final request. And I know we came up with the 5.526 million. And I am wondering why we did not talk about being worried about the cost of technology, why we didn't talk about perhaps the fact that the swing space budget might not be big enough for what we really needed, and how this all played into the going after the McMahon-Wittenberry grant. We've brought in a lot of money for this project, and I'm concerned about the inability to communicate our needs so that we're able to properly address them. And I hope that if there are things we need to be thinking about and other solutions that we need to look at, that we are all in the know about what those problems are so that we have enough time to really think through everything. Thank you.
Thank you. I must say it's a two-way street, and I hope we get all the information from you and all the questions we need from you as we go forward, because we are all mutually responsible for this as we move forward. And I know we're all interested in doing it the right way. And I know we all want to support the library. Other hands from the committee? Okay, let's go on to public comments. Nancy, do we have hands
Yes.
up in the public?
Linda Pagani.
Thank you, Nancy. I wanted to comment on a design element in the McMahon interior that I forgot to mention when that rendering was presented, and that is the wood slatted ceiling over part of the space. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate architectural elements like this and others that were shown, and I hope the budget allows them to make it through all the phases and into the finished McMahon building. The second thing I wanted to mention is about the facade of McMahon. And I know that a few meetings ago, the committee voted to have the architects study that more. And I know at that meeting that Yugon or Tai-Soo Kim suggested to committee members to go to the Hartford Art School to look at the material that was being suggested so that you could see that. And then I thought that the architects said that they would need a decision on what the committee wanted to do at the meeting of the 19th. And so I was surprised at the meeting of the 19th when nothing came up about that. And I know the architects weren't at that meeting, but that's everything that I remember about it. So yeah, I mean, I don't see, yeah, like I thought you voted, like I said, to explore it, but a final decision had to be made. And I thought it was by a set hard date of the 19th so that it could all go into the estimating. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Next, we have Sten Casperson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate hearing that there's been a decision about the selected swing space. This certainly took a long time to center on Winterberry Mall, which was the first and most obvious choice. What I didn't hear tonight is how the cost, projected cost of Winton Mary Mall compares to the budget for swing space. So somebody could answer that if they chose. And secondly, 3,200 square feet at Wittenberry Mall. And just a question for clarification to the public who are going to be expected to use the swing space for perhaps 2 years. What is just the current crosser size? And if you add McMahon to that, what's the total size of those two library facilities compared to 3,200 square feet? Thank you for any response at any time.
Anyone else from the public? Go ahead and raise your hands. Going once, going twice. Okay, no one else has their hand raised, Chair.
All right, thank you, everybody, for your close attention, your time. Look forward to next week. It'll be a very important meeting as we go through this, the next milestone with the estimate. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Ike, second by
Second,
Lois. Lois seconded. Thank you very much. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hands. Okay, we have enough votes. Thank you very much, everybody.